everybody. Right, we are now going to show you the making of one of the rear segments. If you remember the previous videos, I explained that I had done the first of the two rear segments before I decided to make any videos of this whole process. So this is the video showing making of the second rear segment. Now, when I started the application of the fiberglass, the whole process took approximately 2 hours. I am going to put that as a separate video. I mean, there will be a summary of that process speeded up in this video. But I'm also going to put that 2-hour video as a separate video so you can follow it in detail if you would like. It will give you a real life perspective of the process. Right, let's continue. First installed threaded T-nuts to make it easier to bolt the segments together. This, besides making it easier to bolt them together, also ensures that they remain aligned. Then installed a bracket on the segment next to the one that we are doing now to make sure that that segment does not move, which is absolutely critical. After doing that, I will unbolt this segment and remove it. Okay, so now what you have to do, okay, so this side here, which is now going to be flush with that face, we have to make an indentation or channel in it so that we can put the fiberglass around it. So what we're going to do is along this face here, basically all of this area, we're going to reduce by cutting some grooves in it. so that when we put it, so then when we lay the fiberglass, so we'll lay the fiberglass like this, one layer there, another layer, then we'll be able to put that guy in there, and you'll be able to come flush with that side, and then we'll be able to put more fiberglass on this side, which will basically sandwich the wood in between the fiberglass and make it very nice and strong. And what I will do also is I will put some holes through where we can put fiberglass through also, and those holes will then join the two fiberglass pieces together and make it even stronger. So the next step is to get my router and to route some grooves in the sides. Doesn't have to be perfect at all, can be very messy, and so I will just do it freehand, and I'll do the groove about 2 millimeters, just enough for 2 sheets of fiberglass. That's all that's required. We won't do the same on this side yet, because this side will become like that side, which will be completely flush. And then when we do this component, we will then put the channel in this component. We'll put it on this side and on that side. Then proceeded to use my router to route the channel in the face of the segment. The depth is only about 3 millimeters, which is sufficient for the 2 layers of fabric. I then drilled some larger holes in the segment to make it easier for the resin to adhere to the segment when we apply the resin. Okay, that will give it a nice little gap to put where the fiberglass will fit as a sandwich. I then put tape on the neighboring segment, the one that has still got raw plywood, and that is to help make sure that no fiberglass resin adheres to the raw wood. We don't have to do the same for the other segment, because that segment has got fiberglass on it already, and all we need to do is to put wax on it and mold release. So it's only this segment that I'm busy doing here. The next step is to use putty to fill in all of the gaps between the structure and the prototype surface. In filling the gaps, we also need to cut the putties and finish it off so that it has a very clean straight edge onto the prototype surface, because that will make a massive impact to how well the mold comes out, and will affect how the uh, future components that we make out of the mold turn out. So it's very, very important at this stage to get those gaps filled and cleaned really, really well, so that they have a very sharp corner onto the prototype surface. Okay, so we've got the mold where it's the position is where we have the sealer on it. So we haven't put any wax or any release agent on it. We'll only do that once we have cut the fiberglass cloth. Otherwise, you risk getting wax and release agent on the fiberglass cloth. So when you're faced with a simple section like this, the most easiest way to do it, or the easiest way to do it, is to just cut one large piece of fiberglass, 4 of them for the different 4 layers, that you can just put on at once instead of having to have all the small pieces. So first thing to do is to create a template now of the shape. The most accurate way is just to tape it like I've taped it here. You just tape the whole thing and then take it off as one piece, and cut slots in it to make it flat, and then that will give you your template. The other way is to take some fiberglass cloth, to roughly cut it, just gas, and then to come and put it on, try and fill it in, and to see whether it fits. So that's what we'll do here. Now we want the fiberglass to go into the groove at the bottom here. So we want it to bend over. Okay, so now I've got it roughly there. And now I can take a Koki and I can mark out where I should cut this cloth to get the final piece. And I can see here there's a little gap, and that gap is about 1 inch. So I'll just make a mark, some arrows over here, and I'll just say 1 inch, and here it goes down to about half an inch, half from there, and then to 1 to over here. Okay, so, and then on this side it's pretty good. There's just a little section over here that I'll put half inch. Okay. All right, and then when we cut it now, we need to have a piece that comes out about, I would say, 4 inches. So we're just going to make 4 inches all the way on both sides. Okay, so let's go cut out a piece, and then we'll come and test fit it. Then proceeded to cut the fabric into the pieces required. This is 600 grams per square meter biaxial fabric, so it is quite thick, which is going to result in a very strong structure. I'm also cutting smaller pieces to use around corners and where it's difficult to get into. Making sure I'm marking what the top is so that I don't get confused when come to lay them out onto the structure. I'm now also cutting out strips, small pieces of 163 grams per square meter twill weave. This is what we've used in the other components, and I'm also cutting a hole in the middle of them. We will use these small pieces to go around the nuts. I've also cut out the peel ply at the same time. Okay, so what will happen is you'll have these bolts going through. Then we will put one of these guys over the bolt. Then we'll put the big guy on, and where there's a bolt, we will either force it over the bolt or we'll just cut it, give it a little snip so that it can fit over the bolt when we actually install it. We'll put two of these layers, 1, 2. Then we'll put the frame back on, and then we'll put another 2 layers on the other side of the frame, and that should be this area. Then we've got to deal with this bottom area. Now the bottom area, we want to be able to have registration holes in the final mold, so that when we have turned the mold over, I will make a ring for the top of the mold that will hold all of the top together. So in order to do that, we're going to use a piece of wood that I've already cut out to give it rigidity on that edge. But I'm now going to drill holes in the wood where I want these little things to, these depressions. So what we'll do is we'll just draw this out. Then when we, and we'll mark exactly where each one is now. So we just need to make sure we know where we're going to put this guy. And then I can make marks here. And what we'll do is once we have, so there'll be a hole there, we'll fill it with fiberglass as we make this thing. And then once we've disassembled everything, then we will drill a hole from that side, creating the little plug. Because we can't put in a plug now, because we won't be able to then get the mold off. So that's the reason why we're going to do it this way. Why I'm going to do it this way. Okay, so we need to make some holes in this quickly. Okay, so we've cut the board with the holes in it, and the board is going to fit like that. When we put in the fiberglass, we will put a layer of fiberglass underneath, put the board on top of the fiberglass, fill the holes with fiberglass, put another layer of fiberglass over, and then afterwards, once we've turned over the entire mold, I'll be able to drill indentations in this surface, and that will be for alignment for the ring that we will make once we have completed the mold. What's going to happen next is we're going to put in this guy on the edge. And we'll lay fiberglass so that we have an edge coming up here. But before we do that, before we put this in, I must cut fiberglass for this. Fiberglass that can come up and go inside. So we'll do that quickly. Next step now is to apply wax all over the prototype surface and the uh, other segments that attach to the segment that we are going to be fiberglassing. This is ram wax, and I am applying it as thoroughly as I can, making sure that I get into all of the corners, little crevices, everywhere can possibly go the resin. This ram wax creates the basis on which everything rests. Next, I'm just laying down some plastic to make sure that when I start applying the resin, that the mess is contained. Getting together all of the bolts. Now I'm mixing and just pouring some of the mold release into a beaker, and I am dunking all of the bolts and the washers into the mold release to make sure that they don't adhere to the resin, because that would be an absolute disaster. Just checking that I got the right amount. Now I am applying the mold release onto all of the surfaces, making sure that I get it into all of the cracks everywhere. Absolutely essential that we get a very good covering of this mold release. This mold release leaves like a sticky surface, which actually helps when you apply the next part of the making the mold, which is going to be the gel coat. What I'm doing now is I'm just installing the uh, plastic barrier to create the flange to make sure that resin doesn't go all over the show. And I'm going to silicon or any gaps there may be to make sure that the resin doesn't flow all over the place. And that's what I'm just doing now, applying the silicone, making sure that all gaps are nicely sealed. Right. We have to work very, very fast because even though I am using slow hardener, um, you will observe when I start doing it that things never go according to plan. And so if you can do as much preparation, pre-preparation beforehand as possible, it helps a lot. So what I've done here is I've poured into these beakers four of 400 grams and two of 200 grams of the resin blend of part A. Part B is the ratio 25. So for each one of the 400s, I will be adding 100, and each one of the 200s, I'll be adding 50. Why 400 and 200? Only reason is it's very easy to work with. The smaller the quantity, the better, and the larger the beaker, the better, because it will undergo an exothermic reaction. So that means it will start to heat up, and as it heats up, it will harden faster. So the speed will increase. So you will observe that as we start, things will remain nice and slow at the start, but will heat up rapidly and quicken up at the end. Right, so we are now ready to begin. First step in applying the fiberglass is to apply what's called a gel coat. Gel coats come in these little uh, tins with a hardener. Just make sure you select one that is hard wearing, and you basically just mix it up and paint it on, making sure that you get into all of the gaps. It's absolutely essential that the gel coat covers everything, got a very good solid covering of it all over the prototype and along the flanges. What I'm doing now is I'm just sticking through all of the bolts because we will apply fiberglass fabric over them to make sure that when we put in the actual insert of the segment, that the bolts can go through. The next step, what I've just shown you, is I am mixing up some of the resin now, and I am painting, first of all, a coat over the gel coat, and that I'm doing while the gel coat is still wet to ensure that we have very good adhesion between the gel coat and the resin so that there's no delamination. What I've then done is I've added some filler to the resin in a jar. I've mixed it up into a paste. I've taken that paste and I've pushed it into that gap where the handholds are to make sure that we have a very strong uh, edge there. I'm now applying more filler to the beaker, mixing it up, and now I'm going to apply that paste into all of the corners, all of the edges. Uh, what this does is it makes the edges very strong, and it creates a rounded surface that the fabric can easily go around. If you don't do this, if you don't use paste in the corners, what is going to happen is you're going to get air pockets when you try to put the fabric. What I've done now is I've painted over the paste just to smooth the paste out, and now I have put those small pieces of fabric over the bolts, and now I'm painting the fabric to wet it down, putting some more fabric on the joint, make it strong. I've now applied the wooden flange, and now I'm applying the first of the large pieces of fabric, and I'm using a foam roller just to roll it down to smooth it out and to try and get as many of the air bubbles as possible out. I'm also applying a lot of the paste into those holes in the wooden flange to fill them. I've just mixed up another batch of resin, and I'm continuing to push the fabric into that handhold underneath, making sure that I've got a very good covering. Now I'm applying the second piece of fabric over that first piece. I'm going to wet it down, make sure it's tight. There I just cut off a small section of it that was too large. I'm now just pushing out all of the bolts because I'm about to bring in the structure, which I've just put in there now, and I will maneuver it into place and I will bolt it in place. You see me doing that now, putting the bolts in. Forcing the bolts through. It would have been very difficult if I had not made holes in that fabric and put the fabric around the bolts. The bolts would not have gone through. Just again wetting it down. I'm now going to mix up another batch of resin, and I've added some filler to it to create a paste. I'm putting that paste now in the gap, closing the gap, making that edge rounded as well, so that the other fabric layers can easily go on that corners, those edges. Again, putting a lot of paste. The more you put, the better, the easier it is. I'm just putting some fabric down the bottom there to create a flange. Wetting it down, getting the next layer of fabric on, pushing it into all the corners, covering it with resin, rolling it. At this point, the camera ran out of memory. The only thing that's missing in this video is I applied, put the peel ply that we had pre-cut over the fabric, and then with a roller, I just rolled over the peel ply to get rid of any air pockets. And then it was basically complete. Hi everybody. Okay, so this is the aftermath of doing the third part of the mold. ran out of space on the camera, so I couldn't show you the entire process. But let's just recap what's happened thus far. So this was the first section that I did, and only after this section did I decide to then video the creation of this mold. So the first section I showed you how I did was this section over here. But again, unfortunately, when I was doing this, I ran out of battery. So it hasn't been going too well. First battery and then space on the camera. But luckily enough, we have 2 sections still to do. Got to do this section and the one on the opposite side. So hopefully this time you'll see the entire this section being done.